subscribe to my channel.
Once upon a time, in a peaceful kingdom, there lived a young girl named Cinderella. She was beautiful, with golden hair and sparkling blue eyes, but what made her truly special was her kind heart. Cinderella lived with her father, who loved her dearly, and they were very happy together. But one day, her father remarried a woman who had 2 daughters of her own. The stepmother seemed kind at first, but after Cinderella's father tragically passed away, her true nature was revealed. Life with the stepmother. Cinderella's stepmother was a cruel and selfish woman who only cared for her own 2 daughters, Drizella and Anastasia. While her stepsisters were spoiled with fancy dresses and delicious meals, Cinderella was treated like a servant in her own home. She had to wear old rags and do all the housework, cleaning, cooking, scrubbing the floors, and caring for the animals. No matter how hard she worked, her stepmother and stepsisters never showed her any kindness. But despite all this, Cinderella remained kind and hopeful. She often talked to her animal friends, like the mice Gus and Jack, and the birds, who were her only companions. Dreams of a better life. Although Cinderella's life was hard, she never lost her faith that things would get better. Every night, she would look up at the stars and dream of a different life, a life where she would be free and happy. No matter how your heart is grieving, if you keep on believing, the dreams that you wish will come true, she would whisper to herself. The royal ball announcement. One day, a royal announcement was made throughout the kingdom. The king was hosting a grand ball in honor of his son, the prince. All the eligible young ladies of the kingdom were invited, as the prince was seeking a bride. The entire household was buzzing with excitement, especially Cinderella's stepsisters, who couldn't wait to meet the prince. Cinderella too dreamed of going to the ball, but when she asked her stepmother if she could go, her stepmother cruelly laughed and said, "You? In those rags? Impossible." However, she added, "If you finish all your chores and find something suitable to wear, you can go." Cinderella's dress. Determined to go to the ball, Cinderella worked hard to finish her chores, but she didn't have a fancy dress to wear. Luckily, her animal friends, Gus, Jack, and the birds, had a surprise for her. They had found old pieces of fabric, ribbons, and lace, and had sewn a beautiful dress for her. It wasn't new, but it was lovely, and Cinderella was so touched by their kindness. She put on the dress and felt like a princess. The dress destroyed. When Cinderella appeared in her dress, ready to go to the ball, her stepsisters were jealous of how beautiful she looked. Out of spite, they tore the dress apart, ripping off the ribbons and beads. "Now you can't go to the ball," they sneered, and they left with their mother, leaving Cinderella heartbroken. The fairy godmother's arrival. Cinderella ran to the garden, her heart heavy with sadness, and began to cry. She felt that all her dreams had been shattered. Just then, a warm light appeared before her, and a gentle voice spoke. "Why are you crying, my dear?" It was her fairy godmother. The kind old woman smiled and told Cinderella that she would go to the ball after all. With a wave of her magic wand, the fairy godmother turned Cinderella's torn dress into a magnificent ball gown, sparkling like the stars. She also turned a pumpkin into a grand carriage, the mice into horses, a dog into a coachman, and lizards into footmen. Lastly, she gave Cinderella a pair of delicate glass slippers that shimmered with magic. The midnight warning. But the fairy godmother had one important warning. "Remember, my dear, the magic will only last until midnight. You must leave the ball before the clock strikes 12. At the ball, when Cinderella arrived at the palace, everyone was amazed by her beauty and grace, but no one knew who she was. The prince, who had been bored by all the other guests, was instantly captivated by Cinderella. He asked her to dance, and as they glided across the ballroom, they talked and laughed. Cinderella felt like she was in a dream, and the prince couldn't take his eyes off her. But as they enjoyed the night, Cinderella lost track of time. The escape. Suddenly, the clock began to strike 12. Panicked, Cinderella remembered the fairy godmother's warning and ran from the palace as fast as she could. The prince chased after her, calling, "Wait, I don't even know your name." But Cinderella couldn't stop. As she fled, one of her glass slippers slipped off her foot and was left behind on the palace steps. She didn't have time to go back for it. By the time she reached her carriage, the magic had worn off, and she was left standing in her old rags once more. The prince's search. The next day, the prince announced that he would marry the girl who had worn the glass slipper. He sent his servants all over the kingdom to find her, trying the slipper on every young woman they met. Cinderella's stepsisters eagerly tried to fit into the slipper, but their feet were too big. The glass slipper fits. When the prince's servants arrived at Cinderella's house, her stepmother locked her in the attic to prevent her from trying on the slipper. But with the help of her animal friends, Cinderella escaped just in time. When the servant saw her, he offered her the chance to try on the slipper. It fit perfectly. Cinderella was the mysterious girl the prince had been searching for. Happily ever after, Cinderella was brought to the palace, where the prince was waiting for her. He knew right away that she was the girl he had fallen in love with at the ball. They were soon married in a grand ceremony, and Cinderella's dreams of a better life came true. She forgave her stepmother and stepsisters, though they regretted how they had treated her. Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after, and her kindness and courage were remembered throughout the kingdom. Lessons learned. Kindness and inner beauty are more important than outward appearances. No matter how difficult life may seem, never lose hope or give up on your dreams. A goodness will always triumph over evil, and those who are patient and kind will